Alright, y'all, what's happening? It's me coming back at you again with another vid. Now, back to some boxing. Well, Anthony Joshua has came out. Well, on behalf of Eddie Hearn, he's expressed that he wants those unification bouts against Deontay Wilder and Joseph Parker, and then he wants the Dillian Whyte rematch. So he's not running from anybody, according to Eddie Hearn, because a lot of people are accusing him from ducking, which is, I mean, here's the one thing I got to say about that. If another fighter calls out another, if one fighter calls out another fighter, right, and they're asking for a fight, and you're not responding to that fighter, yeah, people are gonna perceive that as a duck, okay. But until then, since now that this other fighter, Anthony Joshua, has responded, even though it's on the behalf of Eddie Hearn, that shows that I have reason to believe that he's ready. He's not afraid of anybody. He's willing to take on anybody, anywhere, anytime. However, all the fights cannot happen simultaneously. You know what I mean? So, although if Anthony Joshua was really keen on fighting Deontay Wilder, and I believe he is, as long as so is Deontay Wilder, Eddie Hearn, and this is I'm only suggesting here. If Vladimir Klitschko decides to not go along with his rematch, he decides to forego it, then Anthony Joshua should go ahead and pursue a unification bout with either Joseph Parker or Deontay Wilder. That needs to be the next step. I know Kubrat Pulev is the mandatory challenger for the IBF, and Luis Ortiz, the WBA, is the WBA mandatory. I think the unification bouts need to supersede the mandatories. If either one of those unification bouts does fall through, they don't go through in the midst of the negotiations. Yes, the mandatory challenges should go ahead and be sought. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Now, let me read the quotes to Eddie Hearn, and they're quite interesting here. He says here, look. At some point, he's actually he's addressing the issues with the IBF and the WBA. Well, first things first, the IBF has granted a exemption for Anthony Joshua to forego his mandatory defense at this time being. However, the caveat is that the IBF is asking, or they're demanding, I should say, that Anthony Joshua does make a deal to fight, or he has to fight Vladimir Klitschko by. I forgot the date. Was it September? Was it November? December? I think it's one of those dates. I think it's by September. He has to fight Klitschko in a rematch by September. So that's the requirement they're asking him to do. So again, although I think that Anthony Joshua should still seek a unification bout, so the IBF is granting this only exemption. But other than that, if it does fall through, then they're going to probably go ahead and enforce the mandatory. They're going to order it, and then a burst bid may be called. So hopefully Joshua and Eddie Hearn file that exemption, so that way they can get that unification bout. So anyhow, so this is what he had to say, because the WBA situation hasn't quite been redressed, even though we all expect the WBA to grant an exemption as well. So this is what Eddie Hearn had to say. He said, look, at some point you may have to vacate the title, okay? If it's a fight that nobody wants to see, then if it's a fight that's not for the benefit to the fans, if it's a fight that isn't benefit for Anthony Joshua's career in terms of where he wants to go, maybe. Again, it's going to be very difficult to maintain all the belts. However, Anthony wants the unification fights. He wants to fight Joseph Parker. He wants to fight Deontay Wilder. But the plan is that with Anthony Joshua is that 2 or 3 more fights, it's 8 to 10 years. Wow, Eddie, really? Now we've got to go through everybody. Now we're urging all the heavyweights to keep going to call them out, to keep calling them out. Now there's fights in the UK. Dillian Whyte is a fight that Anthony Joshua wants to see again. Okay. However, hopefully we can get Dillian Whyte a shot at the championship before. Now we've got to line these guys up for up for 3rd, 4th, 5th fight, because we're going to need them. Now, if I can actually understand this correctly, I'm only theorizing here, guys. It's only my opinion. According to Eddie Hearn, he's just trying to find ways to build these fights up. That's what he's trying to do. Now, as a promoter, I can understand in a sense that's what he wants to do. But to me, as a fan, as a boxing fan, I just don't believe in that logic. I really don't. Because first of all, I just don't like this narrative that nowadays if people wants to see a big fight, we have to wait till it builds up. We got to go through these thresholds. We got to do this. We got to do that. I mean, no, man. We've had enough of that for many years. I mean, look how long it took to get that so-called quote unquote super fight between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. We saw how disastrous that was. Okay. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, many super. I know Leonard and Hagler took several years, but the thing is, Leonard pretty much had personal issues. Okay, that's the reason why that fight was stalled as long as it did. Okay, so yeah, I mean, and finally in '87 it came about after 5 years. People wanted to see it. So, no, I mean, needless to say though, I mean, there are exceptions, but then again, I just don't believe in the fact that we have to build the fight to get fans more interested. I don't believe that anymore. I mean, we've seen many big fights happen in a short period of time. Okay, many big fights. So, needless to say, Eddie, I like Eddie Hearn, but I just think that he is kind of wrong in that area. I mean, if I am reading this correctly, this is what I believe. I think he's just trying to assert the narrative that that we need to build fights before they can actually be made. That's what he's trying to talk about. That's what he's saying. So, no, yeah, okay. Now again, I'm not saying that Anthony Joshua should be fighting 4 times a year. No, no, no. That'd be great if he can, but realistically, going up against all these prime heavyweights, that is kind of impossible to do. So, yeah, let's just hope for the best for Anthony Joshua. He is a unified heavyweight champion of the world. He's definitely the cash cow. So he is. I mean, if you want to get paid, if you need a big payday, he's the guy that you got to go through. So, yeah. So there you have it, guys. Anthony Joshua has called out Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker, and Dillian Whyte. So, yeah. And speaking of Dillian Whyte, he did recently call out, all the heavyweights bitches, which I think I already mentioned in this video. I probably did. So, anyways, I'm rambling, guys. Let me know what your thoughts is. I'm out.